Sometimes it's hard. But as I have told my children, I was telling the people earlier, we're going to make mistakes because we're human. What I like to say is if you make that first mistake, don't make the second. And when you make the first mistake, the second one always comes right after it. If you drink, don't drive. If you get angry, don't cuss. There's a whole other laundry list that Rachel can read off to you at some point. But I've always found in my experience in life and observing life, the first one is okay. If you go to a party and you drink, you know what? You're human. Don't drive. That can be fatal. If you get angry at somebody, you might say something that you wish you hadn't. It may not be fatal, but it might be. You can't change that. Okay? So you're going to make the first mistake. Accept that. Tell yourself not to make the second. If I tell you nothing else today, that's probably the most important thing I've ever tried to convey to my family. We're going to make mistakes. We're human. No one is perfect. You know what? That can also be an excuse and a cop-out. Well, I'm not perfect, so I couldn't be a better father. I'm not perfect, I couldn't. I don't buy that. That's a cop-out. You owe it to yourself to raise your bar and to be the best you can be. Not perfect, just the best you can be. So I try to always keep God and family first and second. Sometimes money is a necessity, but you can't ever cross. We were talking about this earlier. I teach this leadership class at RIT, and I showed everybody know what happened to Enron. There's a terrible movie that's actually, I mean, it's a good movie, but it's terrible. It's called The Smartest Guys in the Room, and it's the Enron story. And I make my students sit through it for an hour and a half. Talks about how it was so easy that first little lie, that first little sin. Easy to make that first one. Then what happened? They made the next one, and instead of just one person involved, 5. And then 50. And then 500. And what was so easy for one now became so easy for 5,000. And you had a corrupt organization. And the people that paid for that greed were not the blue-collar workers. Was the blue-collar workers who lost their entire pension, their savings, by investing in Enron stock trust was betrayed by senior leadership. So I try hard not to make those bad decisions. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I don't know, what did I say last time I was here? Probably the same thing. Yeah. Try to be predictable. When you work in a distributed organization like I do, can I be in every decision, every discussion? So what can I impart on my people? A predictability that helps them understand what would Keith do if he were here, so that I don't get barraged with 300 emails a day or 75 phone calls a day. If I did, what would I say to my people? Why do I need you? I might tell you what to do. Shame on you if I tell you how to do it. We'll have a different conversation. Now, how do you deal with that as a Christian? How do you deal with confrontation? How do you deal with failing employees? How do you deal with people who don't share your value set? Should you, and if you've heard me speak before, then you know the answer to this one, should you treat your employees equally or fairly? Should you treat your customers equally or fairly? Take the first one. Is it possible for me to treat each of my employees equally? Should I? Or should I try to treat them fairly? What happens if this table right here, this was the illustration I used earlier today, and this was this true case at Kodak. I had 6 people, 6 employees. I'm given $60 to give out in raises this year. If I were treating them equally, what would I do? You get a $10 raise, thank you very much, you're welcome. You get a $10 raise, you get a $10 raise, you get a $10, so forth, right? What if you're the superstar of the group? What if you worked twice as hard, you performed and produced twice? What would you feel like?
Angry.
And what would you do? Don't make that second mistake and quit. No, I'm just kidding. What would you do?
I'd probably just get angry and...
And you would quit.
No, I wouldn't quit.
You might, because you could. Why are your best people the ones that will leave you the first? Because they can. So I try to treat them fairly. Fairly would be you get $40 and the rest of you get $5. No, I don't know what that would be, but that was quite a radical thing for me to do when I was at Kodak. State Kodak said everybody gets about the same. You get 3.5%, you get a range between 2 and 5. Heck, I gave half my staff 0 so that I could give those that were deserving 20 and 30% raises. Unheard of at the time. Let's talk about customers real quick. What if you treated your $100 million customer the same way that you treated a $500,000 customer? Should you treat them equally? Can you afford to treat them equally? Can you give everything that you're giving to this $100 million customer to this $500,000 customer? I don't think so either. I don't know what time it is, Ken.
About 5 more minutes.
Another question.
Keith, I'll throw one out.
Please.
Imagine I'm a college sophomore majoring in business, and I want to get a job in business somewhere when I leave. I know one of your first pieces of advice is think about sales. That's an option. Good option. What other advice would you give me as a sophomore to prepare for entering the business world 3 years from now?
Get a job. Find something that you enjoy doing. Why would I say that? Well, why would you want to spend your whole life doing something you don't like? If you like something, do you think you'd have a propensity to be better at it or worse at it? Better. And what happens when you're really good at something? You have a chance to be very successful at something. So, kind of easier said than done, to be honest. Because it's hard to find something. I didn't know I wanted to be in print. I certainly did not want to sell copiers. But I allowed myself to get above what I was actually selling and latch down to what I was really doing, which was serving others, solving problems. So it wasn't that I was so enamored with print, even to this day. I still see what I do as serving others, helping solve problems, helping people see the obvious, helping lift people up. I see most of what I do right now is building my own peoples up. That's my biggest job. My biggest job day in and day out is making sure that we're bringing the right people in and making sure that they're content, happy. It's kind of like what kind of owner, if you were in a sports team, what kind of owner would you want to work for? Or what team would you want to be on? Right? I'd want to be on the Dallas Mavericks because the guy that owns the Dallas Mavericks has more money than anybody, but he recognizes the better I treat my athletes, the better they're going to perform. So I work hard at. So if I'm a sophomore, I want to find, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, anybody want to guess? Rachel, you know this. What my first job was? I was a janitor at our church. But I learned a life lesson that I still hold with me today, that no matter what your job is, try to get life lessons out of it. Janitor at church made 75 cents an hour, but what I learned is that anyone can clean the center of a floor. It took someone extra special to go and clean out the corner. So I learned how to clean corners. And I still hold that with me today, which means I'm not too good to do anything that I would ask my people to do. But I want to get a job and I want to get experience. Doesn't matter what it pays. It does not matter what it pays right now. You want the experience. You want the lessons. You want the learning. Something else I wanted to say and I've lost it now, but another question. See, hopefully you find that you ask me a question, then I answer it, and then I'll tell you like 10 other things. That's what makes it fun. Because I always forget what I might want to say. I also like to be dynamic. I think it's interesting, and this is your time. You've invested your time, Rachel.
What was the greatest mistake you've made, and what did you learn from it? Or just a mistake you made and how you learned from it.
I've made so many. I'm just trying to figure out which one was the worst. It's not like I'm thinking about trying to find one. It's just like, which one is the greatest of the mistakes? Some say that your greatest strength